This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The special we'll be doing Thursday morning as the Supreme Court hands down its decision on health care will be at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We turn now to dark money, the hundreds of millions of dollars being spent by outside groups who are helping to make the 2012 presidential race the most expensive race in history. Experts project spending will top a staggering $11 billion, which is more than double the 2008 total. One of the central figures in the right-wing movement to deregulate campaign finance and help usher in super PACs has been attorney James Bopp. He worked as a legal advisor to the group Citizens United leading up to their victory in the Supreme Court. In this video posted online, Bopp defends Citizens United ruling on free speech grounds. There is some background noise, so listen carefully.
Well, the Citizens United case frees up corporations and labor unions to be able to speak out and give their point of view on who they think should be elected to public office. Of course, this is most important to advocacy groups that are formed to advocate for certain issues or public policy, governmental action, and ultimately candidates, and that's whichever side of the aisle they may be on, that is Sierra Club or Planned Parenthood or National Right to Life. This means that they have the same freedom that everyone has to speak out if they think they have a point of view that they would like to share.
Conservative attorney James Bopp features prominently in a new cover story in Mother Jones magazine called Follow the Dark Money. Last week, Juan Gonzalez and I spoke to the article's author, Andy Kroll, and Monica Boyerlein, co-editor of Mother Jones. I asked Andy Kroll to talk about the significance of James Bopp.
Jim Bopp is, if not the central character on the conservative side, the libertarian side of this fight, he is one of the main characters. He is in this piece. He is a cool, calm, very soft-spoken attorney who lives in Indiana, who, over the past 20 years or so, has just demolished hundreds of campaign finance laws at the state and federal level. And he's done it in a very methodical way. He's done it in a very sort of subtle or quiet way. There's not much fanfare. He doesn't belong to a think tank or a big white shoe law firm. And the thing with Jim Bopp that I really focus on in the piece is that Jim Bopp did not decide one day that he was going to start toppling laws governing money and politics, spending restrictions, disclosure laws, etc. What Jim Bopp did was sort of hitch his wagon to the anti-abortion movement. He was the counsel for the National Right to Life organization. He represented the state chapters and essentially used the culture wars. He used the anti-abortion movement. More recently, he's used the anti-same-sex marriage movement to, basically as a vehicle to go around the country and challenge the legality of rules about money and politics. And he has been quite successful, even more so when John Roberts and Samuel Alito joined the U.S. Supreme Court, essentially paving the way for the Citizens United decision. And frankly, another big decision before that, which was the Wisconsin Right to Life versus FEC decision. And that was something brought by Jim Bopp. And so he has this sort of pioneered this strategy, and it has been incredibly effective. And he is a large part of why we're in this cash-drenched political system, this political environment that we have now.
And Andy, you've gone a little further in your article. You've said that you believe that all of this deregulation of campaign financing is a direct outgrowth of the culture wars. Could you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the culture wars have been, obviously, they have been chugging along for decades now, and they, it's incredibly divisive. It's a reason why we have, a massive conservative movement, and you have people who in the middle of the country who seemingly vote against their own economic interests, as Tom Frank has written, for instance, in the past. Jim Bopp just recognized that, he could go about tackling and taking down campaign finance regulations and loosing this torrent of money in our politics. And he could do it sort of under the guise of National Right to Life or the National Organization for Marriage, which is virulently anti-gay marriage. And he could do that, and people wouldn't necessarily pick up on it as much until they have now, because he's been so successful. But he was very subtle about it, and he knew that the culture wars were not just about the issues like guns or gay marriage or abortion, but that underlying all of these issues is money, and it's money in politics. And he realized, and I quote someone in my piece to this effect, he realized that those culture war issues, as well as every other issue, money in politics underlies all of this policy. And if you can deregulate money in politics, deregulate campaign finance, as Bob has, you can essentially buy the policy outcomes that you want. You've knocked down the laws governing how much money can come into our system, and then you can just get the policy outcomes that you want, whether it's on gun rights, whether it's on tax policy, whatever. And this is sort of the genius of Jim Bopp, if you will.
Monica Boyerlein, you're co-editor of Mother Jones. You're devoting this issue, want to buy an election inside the 40-year campaign to sell democracy to the highest bidder. Explain this concept, the term that Mother Jones has coined, dark money.
It's an astronomical metaphor, of course. We have dark matter in the universe, where the universe of politics is full of these visible celestial bodies, politicians and campaigns and traditional PACs and talking heads and surrogates and pundits and so forth. But then flowing around them is this dark matter, this money that we don't know exactly, as in fact none other than Senator John McCain has said, that we don't know where it's coming from, we don't know what it's trying to buy, we don't know where it's going, and it exerts this incredibly powerful force on the movements of all the things that we see.
And what about the role of the press, especially the commercial media, in shedding light on this dark money? Obviously, a lot of the money that's being raised ends up going to paid advertising on television and radio and in newspapers. So there's a self-interest problem here for the press in terms of unmasking or campaigning against this dark money.
It is an influx of money for broadcasters and to some extent print media, and surely they all need it. It is also true that it's really hard to follow for reporters. It's not, because it's dark money, it doesn't disclose itself, it doesn't advertise itself, it often doesn't hold press conferences. So you have to really chase, the kind of work that Andy has to do of identifying the source behind a TV ad that's in heavy rotation in, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and saying this is being paid for by a P.O. box that gets its money from another P.O. box in suburban Virginia that gets its money from another P.O. box in Texas, and behind that last P.O. box are 3 corporations that are really underwritten by the same individual. That kind of thing is very hard to do, and most news organizations at this point don't have the bandwidth or the reporting power to go after it, which is why up until now we had laws requiring disclosure and requiring these entities themselves to tell citizens what they're up to, and that's all gone, or mostly gone, as a result of the Citizens United decision.
Let's stick with the Wisconsin recall election earlier this month, the most expensive in the state's history, with more than $63 million spent. Governor Walker, who survived the recall, outspent Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett 7-1, close to 8-1. I want to turn to an ad that was bankrolled by the secretive Virginia-based organization called the Coalition for American Values.
I didn't vote for Governor Walker. I did not vote for Scott Walker.
I didn't vote for Scott Walker, Joe, but I definitely against this recall.
Recall isn't the Wisconsin way.
There's a right way, there's a wrong way, and I think this is the wrong way.
I elected him to do a job.
Let him serve it out.
Living in a democracy, you have to have faith in who the people elect.
I didn't vote for Scott Walker, but I'm against the recall.
I mean, this is an ingenious ad, because I'm sure they did some kind of focus groups or polling, and they saw that Walker was not popular in Wisconsin. But they realized they could raise the issue of the recall being undemocratic. You know, there was an election, someone was elected, let him serve out his time. Andy Kroll, talk about who it was that bankrolled this.
I wish I could tell you exactly who it was, but I still don't know. The group behind it was called the Coalition for American Values, which it does really not get more generic than, I guess, Americans for a Better America. What I found, so this ad comes out. As you mentioned, it really does have a potent message, and in retrospect, or in hindsight, we now know that it was incredibly potent, because exit polls showed that a lot of the people who voted for Walker were really voting on discontent over the recall itself. So I start digging into this group, find that their address in Milwaukee, in the state, is a mailbox, essentially, and that their office, they have another office in Virginia, and that's a UPS store box. And so there is no home address or home office. The treasurer, as far as I could tell, and we could never actually pin this down, was a gentleman named Brent Downs, who appeared to be a recent graduate of a university in Milwaukee, didn't answer phone calls, didn't reply to emails. And what brought them to my attention was not only were they running this ad and spending 6 figures on this ad around the state, they had not filed a single report with the state disclosing their spending. I mean, it's one thing to just funnel money through an incorporated entity in Virginia into Milwaukee, into Wisconsin, and not tell us where your money came from, and they can legally do that with the weird way that campaign finance law works in Wisconsin post-Citizens United. But we also had no idea what they were spending. And I raised this with the elections watchdog in Wisconsin. Not only had this group not disclosed its donors, but they had not even filed a report on their spending as required. This is what brought them to my attention before the election. They said they were going to fix it. They still hadn't. And so the takeaway here is you have Wisconsinites who are completely in the dark about a group called the Coalition for American Values, running ads in their state, telling them that this recall is bad. Not only do they not know who the donors are, based on our tattered campaign finance system, but they also don't know how much this group is spending, really, and where, as the group is required to disclose. And so it was a really, really disturbing glimpse into how dark money can come into a state election and put out this message and surely have an impact on voters, and keep those same voters entirely in the dark about how much is being spent, who's spending it, and just who the heck is behind this group in the first place.
Andy Kroll, reporter for Mother Jones Magazine, and co-editor Monica Boyerlein. Andy's new cover story is called Follow the Money. We'll continue our conversation after break.